The idea I had behind this one, I know the title is kind of like long and convoluted and stuff. Like everybody, I've had a number of people, including the panelists, ask me, what does that all mean? Honestly, this is kind of funny because I think I put two proposals of like what I wanted to call this up there, and there was a miscommunication, and Janos just mashed both ideas together. So the concept, though, that I want to talk about is a lot of creators that I work with and that are out there have degrees, but many of them are not trained engineers. We have both right-sided and right-brained and left-brained individuals. And I teased this earlier with one of our panelists, Adam, who was nice enough to come up here. And we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. So for those of you who might not be familiar, I think a lot of us feel like we're just not quite good enough to get started sometimes. And each of our creators that we're about to talk to is going to kind of share a little bit about their journey. But I would venture a guess that they would almost all agree that sometimes just getting started and that you are much more qualified than you probably allow yourself to think is important. So you don't necessarily need to have that engineering degree. There's many very talented science influencers and creators out there that don't have degrees. So we're gonna hear from both sides. So not just because the panelists are up here doesn't mean they agree with the premise of this. I like to be a little provocative sometimes in what I say because it promotes a little bit more interesting conversation. So without further ado, let's bring them all up here. I think they're back. It's so hard to see sometimes. We've got Joel Gomez, Integza. You know him as Integza. John, Proper Printing. Adam from Vector 3D. And of course our STEMFI guys, Paulo and Tim. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Roll the intro. We're going to do 5 because we couldn't pick between we don't want to pick favorites from STEMFI, so we allowed them to both be up here and share the limelight a bit. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being up here. Let me just lead first of all by saying, like, we really did our best to try to encourage as much representation as possible. Unfortunately, like, we didn't have a good female option, so that was not intentional. I promise. We are spreading the love, but I think one of the things that I would love to start with, and maybe I'll reach out to Joel Integza here. You have a degree in engineering.
I do.
What was it like for you? Like, is it a challenge that it seems to be very male dominated, and is that a disservice to the space of engineering sometimes?
I don't know. I think it's. I'm not a specialist, but yes, from my experience, it's much more male. So in my class in 2011, it was 80 guys and 3 girls, and that is more or less what is normally like the class for mechanical engineering. In most engineerings, it's very similar. I've seen it like increase. It's just that I don't know if it's a matter of interest or if it's a matter of like stereotypes, but you do not see many female in the field of engineering.
Are there things that you guys think that we could do just as a start to like make that more inclusive? Like, is it more intimidating? I mean, I apologize because having a bunch of men opine on this is a little bit funny, but I think we would all agree that we would like to see more representation and more, and hopefully it is changing. Was your experience, Adam, as an engineer, like similar to Joel's, or have you seen it get better over the years?
I mean, it was a while, obviously, since I did my degree, but I do have a similar experience in terms of numbers. But my experience in terms of ability is that the numbers don't reflect the ability difference. Like, ability-wise, exactly the same, but the numbers are skewed. I don't know exactly the source of that, but to me, there's nothing to suggest that it shouldn't be equal.
And I lead with this, again, to be a little bit provocative, because at the end, we're going to open this up to audience participation. I would hope that if there's commentary on this out there, that we can delve in a little bit deeper. I lead in, again, with the idea, if we're talking about the concept of imposter syndrome, what it is that we can do to, again, make this better. Let's start, though, by just giving everybody some context. So, Paolo, you do not have an engineering degree,
No, I
correct?
don't. That's right.
Okay. And then I believe everybody else in here does. So let me just start by asking you guys, would you have done your channel if you didn't have your degree, or is that what gave you the confidence to start in this? John?
Yeah, I don't think that much would have been that different. Mostly for me, it's the environment where you grow up in. So I consider myself mostly self-taught regarding CAD, especially in the beginning. I was taught AutoCAD, but that's totally different from the 3D modeling. We did have Inventor, but we had to, the teachers, they didn't know how to use it, so we tried it ourselves, and with some other classmates, we just tinkered around with it, and then it clicked. And I don't think if I wouldn't have had the engineering degree, I would have done the same, but just by watching YouTube videos, for instance, or just being around people that are like-minded. So the school itself didn't add much value on that regard.
Paulo, what are your feelings on that? Is it just a mindset, or?
Yeah, I agree totally. The thing is, my parents, they used to buy second-hand toys, hand-me-down toys, because I knew as soon as I got a car, 5 minutes later, I would have kind of opened it up and see how it works inside. It was cheaper for them to buy these kinds of toys. And I've always been an early adopter. So I had my first computer, which was an Amiga 1000 in 1989. I played for a few months, like computer games, and I kind of, and I found something called XCAD, which was a Unix port version of a real CAD, industrial CAD thing. And I got stuck with that until now, literally until now. So my desire to be a creator put me in an environment that didn't exist there. If I wanted to become an engineer within CAD, it was, at that time in the 1980s, it was, where were the CAD stations? The same thing goes for 3D printing. I started printing in 2002 on a industrial wax machine. And if I would have looked for a formal education, academic education, I wouldn't have found, in Sweden there was none. So it's that early adoption thing that put me into the environment. And very much as you said, I tried to find like-minded people. And I think universities and schools, they are the perfect place to gather together physically like-minded people. But the actual content, that's more personal driven.
Tim, will you do have a degree. You also work on STEMFI with Paulo. Can you give a little bit of the background and your experience with it, and maybe how your approach to doing engineering design work for your product maybe varies from your counterpart?
Well, even though I have a degree and so forth, similar to Paulo, we're similar. Yeah, you can see. We're relatively similar to looks also, but I'm early adopter as well, so I've been printing way before I even know where physical principles were and so forth. So playing around and self-taught basically ended up me thinking of, can I use my self-taughts and implement that into the degree? It's useful, absolutely, because then I have some of my back to fall back to. But in this case, I'm doing this for the passion and for love of the technique and helping others to embrace it. And so yeah, a degree will absolutely help, but it's definitely not necessary, since we are working together and we're doing a lot of stupid things that we cannot mention here. But of course, those parts or projects having a curiosity grinding in my back because I have the degree, because I know those small things, but I want to try them out in physical world as well. Because it's one thing to just sit in a lecture and just, yeah, I can count on how a I-beam is holding up. But now we're talking for plastics and 3D printing. It's not steel. It's not solid, for instance. How do you calculate a beam that is 10% of infill, for instance? I'm doing it by trial and error. So it's more or less that trial and error mentality that both of us are emphasizing more and more.
Yeah. If it doesn't break, it works.
Could I add something as well?
Please.
In terms of considering what it means to like be an engineer or do engineering, because I mean, obviously, based on the focus of the talk, it's engineering as a degree and as an academic thing, and as you're really smart because you did all the things. It's like, well, actually, engineering is just problem solving in a sort of scientific way using maths. Like, you don't need any qualification to do any of those things. Yeah. As long as you're doing that process of coming to a conclusion via that route, you are doing engineering.
Yeah, well said. Joel, in watching some of Intex's channel, and I see like so much of what I believe makes you successful, and I can say this about actually all of you and John, is how effective you are as a communicator. And I would ask, like, does an engineering degree like make you a better communicator?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think an engineering degree is a little bit of like a double-edged sword, in the sense that it kind of like helps you get into the sphere where you know like the terms. For example, I'm not 100% sure I would ever hear about CAD if I wasn't in college, right? Because I don't have friends that do CAD, right? I was born in a small village, probably would never heard of it. Like other terms like aerodynamics, thermodynamics, combustion engines, it's not that you need to know all the math behind it, but just knowing the terms, just getting into that sphere, it helps you a lot getting to it, right? I think it happens to everyone when you want to search something that you've seen somewhere on Google, but you don't know the term, so it's really hard to find. But once you know the term, it's okay, you can just go from here, and what is this, and what is this? And you learn by yourself, right? But if you don't know the term, it's really hard to get there. I think the negative aspect of the engineering course is that they are not like teaching you to know science. They are teaching you to do a job. So they're going to be like, okay, a combustion engine has a battery efficiency at this speed. And you're going to be like, why? Don't worry about that. Just keep going. Because I understand it, because they cannot teach you everything in 5 years. But it's not the best way, because doing like engineering without knowing the why in some things sometimes is just not really correct. And it becomes dangerous a little bit. I would say, and I agree that empiricism, like trial and error, fantastic. But sometimes like the best marriage is to have a little bit of theory, right? Okay, maybe this should be this dimension. You're not gonna get it right, like with calculations in a spreadsheet, but then you can just test 2 or 3 dimensions, and then you know more or less what's the right one. If you do zero math, zero theory, you're gonna have to test like 100 dimensions. A lot of them are gonna break. You're gonna spend a lot of material, right? A lot of time with no necessity. So I think it needs to be a good marriage of both, like theory, empiricism, trial and error, a little bit of math, and it's just perfect. I think my engineering degree helps a lot in the theory part and knowing the terms, but then the empiricism, the trial and error, is much better to reach results really fast.
Sure. It seems to me that one of the first things that any creator has to do is decide what they want their channel to be. Because we see some very, very technical creators out there that are much more science-minded, much more education-minded, really digging in on the detail work of explaining. And then there are those that are much more like in the realm of what I would call edutainment, right? Where it's like, it's just enough to be dangerous to get people curious and interested, but you employ comedy, you employ storytelling and elements that are not actually traditionally taught in engineering. So seeing how much you guys have all grown and built channels and audiences and stuff, like if you were to create a curriculum for technical people to like be successful in the modern age, like Are there more elements that you would add to that to diversify so that it wasn't so technical, maybe?
I think it's mostly about developing intuition about things. Because, for example, no one here learned how to ride a bicycle by reading a book, right? It doesn't matter. You can take a PhD like in riding a bicycle. If you never ride a bicycle, you don't know how to do it. That's as simple as that. So I think the most important part is, yes, follow the theory, use what you've learned, but also test things, experiment, develop an intuition for it, so you can actually know what's going on. Something that I do in my channel that I actually was taught by Maddie from Electroboom is I can either tell, like, in the video, spend like 10 seconds or 30 seconds saying people, don't try this, it's not gonna work, right? It doesn't matter, because it's that mother-children effect in which, like, it's rebellious, like, you don't tell me what to do, you know? I think it's much more effective to do it on video, fail, and then they know. Because if you tell a kid, don't put your hand on the stove, you're gonna get burned, they're not gonna learn it. But if they go there once and they burn their hand, it's for life. It's done.
You've scarred them for life. Paulo, you want to elaborate on your...
Yeah, I like the bicycle analogy. Thank you. It's because there's one thing. Obviously, you cannot theoretically learn to ride a bicycle. I think the academic years, whatever engineering degree you want to do, like 4 or 5, 6 years, is like a discipline. I can tell, I run a company in Sweden called Creative Tools. We had like 18 employees at the most, and maybe I interviewed some 80 people. And I looked at all the papers they brought with them. It would be stupid not to do that. But I want to know, can you even ride a bicycle? It tells you here. You know, you can tell me about different bicycles and whatever, tandems, lovely. There's a bicycle, can you please perform? I know it sounds a bit weird, but can you dance? Because the role of an employee is to dance for the company, to make the company profitable. So I was really drawn to people who formally presented whatever they had studied, and then I would say, can you show me more, please? And I would say, next week, there's a free desk here. Can you come and do some 3D graphics? And we'll invite them for free. I will offer them food and so on. So that's the academic thing. I think it's great because it shows me that someone took the effort to actually be among other people, which sometimes is not that easy, and went through all that stuff and then present them themselves. So I think it's good. And one more thing, what do you do when you learned how to ride a bicycle after 5 years? You don't stop riding, don't you? So the learning thing is just a Kickstarter. For me, engineering degrees is a Kickstarter campaign. And then you actually release your product as yourself, developing things.
Yeah. Adam, how many different things did you feel like you had to try before you kind of like found the path that you wanted to go, whether it's as a creator or just in school or any of that?
I'm not sure if I've found the path yet.
Yeah, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up either. So.
Every day I wake up and I'm like, which path shall I take today? Yeah. No, I mean, engineering, like, it's one of the things I maybe disliked about having the degree is the way it's sort of, I mean, a lot of the education system, you start with like every subject, you do your history, your chemistry, every different possible thing they can teach you. And you have to cut it down. You cut it down, you cut it down, you cut it down, and now I'm an engineer. And you're like, actually, I'm not sure I really like engineering that much. Yeah. And you've already cut out all of those things that could have been more fun or more enjoyable. So yeah, I mean, after leaving engineering, you're like, okay, well now I can go and do all those things again. I'm going to go and learn the things that I didn't get by being focused on doing one degree.
Yeah. I found, just a quick anecdote, like I started my career as a mechanical engineer. I started my university as a mechanical engineer, and then I decided I didn't like that, and I tried computer engineering, and ultimately I ended up in a little technical field in our College of Business for industrial technology, which was a lot of quality control and CAD, but I liked that it was a lot of variety and whatnot. But I want to point back to this question and ask Tim and the rest of you too, like, can being given too much technical, like, can it hurt you? Like, is it a disservice sometimes to be too technical minded?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's, as we earlier mentioned, it's like you're taught in school that pi is 3.4, but it's that. But why? We basically doesn't questionize it. So in the real world, we have to question it and create our own answer of it. But so if we're formed in one way in the academia, we're used to go for that path. And how can we deviate from that path in creating new content and new projects, for instance? Because if we're taught in that specific, especially if you're going further in the rabbit hole of academia, for instance, first a bachelor, then a master, then it's going quite deep in the rabbit hole, then you're a really good expert at nothing, basically. Because you're going down the drain, and you're specific at that little part. And how do you apply that in practice? So it's quite difficult.
I think,
John, you said. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say something. There's one part, especially for me, which is in math, right? A lot of like math classes, they don't explain anything. They're just like eat it up and use it, right? And that's annoying because it feels like starting to watch Game of Thrones in like the 17th episode. Like, but what's the background? Like, I feel like I'm missing here something. One for me, a big one, is imaginary numbers because it makes no sense at all, right?
They're called imaginary. Yeah.
Yeah. What, square root of -1? Yeah. Like, are you not going to explain that, right? And they don't. It's just like, use it, right?
Probably originated in Amsterdam, right?
And it took so many years. I never got it. And then Veritasium posted a video in which he explains the background of it and why it is how it is. And it's such a great video. And it finally clicked for me, right? Is it like, it's not that they even understand it themselves. It's just that it's the route they took, the only way to solve like some problems. They had to add an additional dimension to the Cartesian reference system. And that makes sense. Okay, I understand it. Not everything can be explained. Probably we're never going to know exactly why magnets attract each other.
How do they work?
You cannot ask why forever, but at least let's go to the ground level. Let's give all the context in some things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. John, you said yes to the like it can.
Yeah, for the question,
Yeah.
because when it comes to YouTube videos, is that if you are too much into engineering, you become, you think of functional, designing something functional. And it's hard to become a salesperson. It's hard to sell the cool stuff that you thought of, or even if it's a concept. So in case of a YouTube video, it's nearly impossible to have a great title and thumbnail about a functional concept. And that's pretty tough. So now I'm more focused on having a clear deliverable that's apparent immediately, and the concept is a means to get to it. But showing the concept itself that got me interested initially, it's so hard to sell.
Not only that, but I feel like the more technical that I see people try to be, the more it almost invites the pedantic people out there to debate you or argue. Like, whereas when you are doing things for fun or entertainment or whatever, it's more of an art, and it's not to say that there aren't plenty of turds in the comments, constantly giving you guys grief for stuff. But I have to imagine that the more technical you are, the more you have to make sure you have it right sometimes. And is that stressful?
Yeah, and you have to clearly communicate why you're doing something. So I always forgot that. So I started with what. So this is what I'm doing. And I show you how I do it in the video. But I would never mention why. So, and that's a problem. So if you make something for fun, then it's clear, okay, the why is for fun. But if you never communicate that, and you aren't clear on that, then people don't have a feeling of why they should care, and then you get all those picky.
Well said. Paulo, you and Adam both, I think, have businesses as well. And it's not to say creators aren't businesses, but more traditional where you're actually selling product. Yeah. Or have had businesses in the past. So offer us a little insight in terms of, has engineering served you in business application or has it presented more of a challenge to you sometimes as well?
I don't think it's presented itself as a challenge. I think whilst having the engineering degree itself has not necessarily helped in business, the process of going through university and sort of learning to learn and recognizing your ignorance in things that you don't know is a really good place to start when you're starting a business and I can do this one thing and actually there's 50 jobs that I need to be able to do, even if it's only for a few hours once every couple of weeks. I have to have some level of competence in that. Even in accounting, I pay accountants to do my accounts because I don't want to do it wrong. But I need to know still a little bit to make sure that what they're doing is in line with what my business is doing.
Sure. Paolo, you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I think the engineering aspect in running a company it helps a lot to be a problem solver. And I think even though I didn't go through a formal engineering, I kind of plowed through lots of information, which kind of I assume is equivalent. But it's all about meeting everyday's challenges and solving them. And if you've gone through, I'm guessing, 4 or 5 or 6 years of problem challenging you, even if it's just theoretical, it gives you a good mindset to attack whatever assaults you that day. And I would give, I'm 56 now, so I ran my company. I'm creating toys with Tim. It's all good and fun. I'm addicted to 3D printing like crazy. I won't stop. I think my grave will be a 3D printed version. Anyway, does anyone have conquered 3D printing? No, but I think my advice would be whatever you do, even if you want to go through academic years, don't only do it for the money, because the world is changing rapidly now. I'm assuming now. In the olden days, you would have to wait for your professor to have time to answer a few questions. And what do you do with AI today? Yeah. I'm not saying AI is perfect, but it gives you instant access to wide ranges of things. Yeah. So you can do it at home when you want.
Yeah.
So it's...
Well, we've got a couple minutes left. I want to give the audience an opportunity to interact with you guys. Obviously, we have the luxury of if we don't get to it, if you have a question, everybody will be here the rest of the evening. So please make sure to approach them, say hi. But does somebody want to kick us off? Anybody have any questions for the panel? Yeah, in the back. I'm going to bring you the mic so they can hear you on the stream. Okay. Here you go, Dave.
I'm a content creator, and I am not trained at all by any engineering standards, but I like to create and figure things out. From your perspective, when you guys see content from people who aren't engineers, how much do you cringe and just be like, ooh, what is he doing?
Can I cover that?
Yeah, please.
Not at all. So I don't want to be that guy that brings up running, because I run a lot, but there's a kind of mindset with people as they start, as I've kind of introduced quite a lot of people to it, that they don't feel good enough to do it, and they feel like they're being seen by other runners as inadequate. And yet, once you're into it and you're really in that, you always want new people. You want to see other people get joy from it. And it's the same thing with other people's videos and them enjoying the process, enjoying learning, enjoying however they approach that subject. I just enjoy seeing other people have fun with it.
Yeah, right.
Hello, I'm Kate. I have a degree in mechanics and mathematics, so I'm a girl there, and half of my group was girls, so just for you to know. No. I have a question. I was working for 16 years as software engineer, and I like 3D printing. I make my own 3D models, but I would say I don't remember most of the things they teach me at university. I remember there was something about vibration in Technic. There was science about this. I remember terms, but not the specifics. So I'm interested in how is it for you? Would you say like you have this degree and you say it helps, but do you actually remember, or do you use just these bits of information like terms and then you go and Google it?
Yeah, that's basically what I do.
Yeah. Say we're all just imposters.
I forgot 98% of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and in this day and age, it's like, do we need to even practice long division when we just have a calculator? I think in a lot of ways, it's like we have this amazing resource, whether it's AI or just the internet in general.
Yeah, it's
Look.
more of the environment that you're in.
Yeah, I don't think the remembering is actually that important. It feels important because you feel like you've paid for that information when you go to university, well, depending on what country you're paying for it in, but there's a lot of information that you feel like, well, that's the bit that I'm taking from it. And to me, that's not the bit. It's, as you say, the environment, the process of learning, knowing that you can approach those really challenging subjects and overcome them. You're like, okay, well, this is just a different subject. This is a different way of learning. But I did this other difficult thing, so I can do this one too.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
And once you're in, you run into problems, and these are very specific, and then you will start searching for those specific problems and solutions. And school is like this, well, broad toolbox, but once you start doing your own stuff, then you run into these issues and you will plow through. So that's my way of learning mostly.
Yeah, and as Joel said earlier, sometimes it's about just remembering the context of how to ask the question.
Exactly,
Having
yeah.
that background, right? Another question here.
Hi, I'm Arseny. I have a degree in electronic engineering, and I feel like the school and university was more of a discouragement for what I study. What I mean is that when you are forced to study, the joy of education just goes away. And after university, I did for 7 years did a completely off-topic job, and now I'm trying to get back into 3D printing, but on my own terms. And I just wanted to ask if it was maybe you felt something similar, that when you don't actually go and study it, but learn it for yourself, you actually keep the courage and keep the enjoyment, and that's what keeps you going.
I would say so, yeah. It's just that the engineering they tell you, they taught you at university is very contained. It's very focused to do a job. So they don't let you go much outside of the boundaries. Once you unleash that engineering and you go all the directions, it's much more fun. Because you can just go anywhere, you can find out everything. You can get creative about it, which I think it's something that is not very valued in engineering. But creativity is just amazing when you just apply it to engineering. You found out some stuff. You can just play with all the rules in the universe. A little bit of thermodynamics here, a little bit of 3D printing, and it's just amazing. I think engineering has a little bit of art in it.
Well, as you said, the aspect of having a class, going there for 2 hours and closing the book and go home, but what about then? So the key aspect for my university is that we had a place for after classes to play around, take the theory and take it to practice. So that was a really good key for my education, is that I could take the boring theory and taking it to practice after school hours, and doing with that with my peers. It makes it even more fun. It's the same thing here. We are all equal-minded, all in love with 3D printing and content creation. So it's even better if we can do it together instead of just writing formulas on papers.
You're lucky. That's a good experience. I don't think a lot of people have those resources a lot of times in university, too. More questions for the panel? Yes, over here.
So I have an industrial design engineering degree, and I'm also a content creator. And I'm wondering, how do you deal with the actually comments? Do you have a secret support group, or do you engage the trolls?
You want to go first, John? So for me, I think what happened to me on YouTube was when you have a small channel, all the comments are nice, right? I don't think I've ever had a bad comment in the beginning. Now there's a lot of really aggressive comments. Now, I avoid reading all of them because it can really ruin your mood for an entire week. So what I do is, when I post the video, I read the comments because I know those are the loyal ones, right? They're going to be there saying, you're beautiful, you're intelligent. The rest, the ones that come after it, I don't need to see. Those are words for the void.
I would say pretty much the same thing. I mean, my channel's not quite to the same size. I don't get as many comments, but it's the same thing as like the first ones are great, but after that, I don't even read them. Don't even come close.
By the way, I just want to share this. For some reason, the comment that tormented me the most was this person that commented the word no, comma. No, dot. Just that. No. He basically denied my existence. It was like, no, dot.
It is a sentence.
Yeah.
Another question, Bash?
Not people who like tomatoes, or?
There's a lot of them that like tomatoes that are in my comments. Here's the thing. I never reply comments. Never. Because I used to do it when I was a smaller channel, because it's so tempting, right? You can't do it. If you do it, they are winning, because there's a lot of people that they comment on your videos, right? And what they want, no matter what, is for you to respond. They might love you, but they might say, your teeth are crooked and yellow. What's wrong with that, right? And you reply, you're like, what are you? And they're so happy because like you replied, right? They'll do anything for you to reply. If you don't reply, they never win. So it's best not to reply.
Yeah. Another question.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, like, now that you guys are super big, when you're doing something very creative that has not been done before, and that involves like multidisciplinary, like chemistry and like bunch of things. So how do you deal with the pressure of like doing it suboptimally or not doing it in the most best way possible?
I can. Yeah, so if anything, I think that's almost the best way to go about it. Deliberately do it as poorly as you can first. Because it takes the stress off to try to do it perfectly. If you're aiming for doing it really well and you're showing everyone, look at all the cool stuff that I learned and this is how you do this and this is how you do that, you put all the pressure on you to make it amazing. If you just go, well, this is how not to do it, or I'm trying it and I know it's going to be rubbish, but do it anyway. It's like, it's making that first step will get you there to then improve. That's what I would say.
Well, gentlemen, that's our time for tonight. Again, I would encourage you all. These are very approachable individuals, very great and gracious to give us their time. I want to thank you for having this conversation with me, and let's continue it on out in the lobby if we can later. So, a round of applause for our panel. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll have Janos introduce the next one.